It's that time. It's time for future Commissioner Pate to put on his future commiss shirt, which ironically is the same white t-shirt I always wear. But I was asked earlier today, hey, if you were the commissioner, you can just do whatever you want to. Forget about what's possible and impossible. In the future, if you're the commissioner, you could just executive order your way around anything and everything. What would you do? Well, I know exactly what I would do. I'd fix conferences. Among many day one initiatives that I would have if I was the commissioner of college football, and let's be real, I will be at some point, I would make conferences make sense again. Conferences don't make sense in college football. Conferences used to make geographical sense. Size-wise, they made sense. Numerically, they made sense. Believe it or not, kids, there was a time where the Big Ten had 10 teams in it, and the Big Ten was a bunch of schools in the upper Midwest. And now Oregon's in the Big Ten. And now Rutgers is playing a conference game in the LA Coliseum. It just makes no sense. So it doesn't have to be that way. And you're telling me if I'm the commissioner with the power of this pen, I can just executive order my way back to the college football that I want? Well, that's what we're doing here tonight. So this is what I would like to do. I'm not just going to broad stroke it, immunity, I think. I am going to tell you the conferences that I would have, and this is the real fun part, and I'm also going to tell you some moves that I'm going to make. And I'm also going to tell you some protocols, some guidelines that I've put in place here. So the first thing I want to do, hey, where else would we start? You know the reputation of this show. Let's show them what the SEC would consist of, because there are some big changes in the SEC. The first thing you'll notice is there's an absence of Texas and Oklahoma. Well, they're not in the SEC anymore. They shouldn't be in the SEC now. So you'll notice that they're gone. Where's Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt's not in the SEC anymore either. I'll tell you where they're going in just a second. Texas A&M? A&M, they've been here for over a decade. Well, not no mo. So they're leaving, but they're not disappearing. I'm just realigning. Hey, do you also notice there are only 10 teams in my new SEC? That's because there is no conference with more than 10 teams. And I'm going to tell you why. Because every single conference out there is going to include a schedule where everybody plays everybody. Instead of this lunacy that sees Florida play half of the top 10 teams in the country, and I got Missouri just skating through. Tennessee this year's got an infinitely easier schedule than Florida. That's not their fault. That's the fault of us putting the wrong adults in the room to make decisions. Never underestimate how badly having the wrong hands on the wheel of anything can screw that thing up. Let's go to the Big Ten, Colin. Who are we going to put in there? More importantly, whomst are we taking out? So in the Big Ten, I got Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Ohio State, Penn State there, Purdue, Wisconsin. I have removed Maryland via executive order from the Big Ten because I don't think they belong there. Rutgers does not belong there. And also, once you get to, Iowa and Minnesota, that's it. You don't go any further west, nor should you, in the Big Ten footprint, than Iowa and Minnesota. There is no West Coast team in the Big Ten because there shouldn't be, because conferences are about geography. They're about territory. Big Ten football, as a phrase, used to mean something. It used to pop an image in your mind. And now it could be UCLA or it could be Michigan State. So that makes no sense. It never has been. This next edition, and it is an edition, is long overdue. Long overdue. I'm bringing the Southwest Conference back. The Southwest Conference, my favorite conference to talk about. The Southwest Conference was taken from us well before its time. They are going to play for the Sherwood Blunt Memorial Trophy as the conference championship award in this conference. I'm bringing all the old school teams back. I'm throwing Arkansas over there, so Arkansas is not in the SEC anymore. I'm putting them back in the Southwest Conference. Oklahoma, this will be a little controversial because OU was not in the original SWC, but I'm putting them in the Southwest Conference too. And aside from that, it's just a bunch of the Texas schools. Now, a younger viewer may watch this, or a casual viewer. They're not one and the same. But I could see a younger viewer who doesn't know what the Southwest Conference was, or a casual who's just been convinced you have to be coast to coast to be a conference. And they may look at this and say, oh, that'll never work. Just a bunch of Texas teams? Who's going to watch that? A ton of people. A ton of people will. Because this is the way college football is supposed to be presented. And this is the way a conference is supposed to look. Now, I want to say something. You may have noticed, there we go, right there. Do you see right here? If you're listening on podcast, I am pointing very aggressively at Rice. I want you to listen to me, Rice. I've got my eye on you. You are entering the Southwest Conference on probation. Not for the reasons everyone used to be on probation down there. You're entering the Southwest Conference on probation because the only reason you're entering this conference is due to legacy and tradition and history. You really don't belong at this table right now. We know that. You know that. I know that. The dozens and dozens of people who show up to your games know that. But I'm putting you there for the sake of history. If you screw this up, I will relegate you in a heartbeat because I have built in a relegation system. Also, you'll notice A&M is rightfully back in the Southwest Conference. I do want to console and reassure my friends in College Station. This is not the old school Southwest Conference that really should just have been the Longhorn logo. It won't be like that. You've got a friend in the commissioner's office here. Not that I'm anti-Texas, but I'm pro-fairness. So a lot of the fears you just had, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I also, and this could be day 2 stuff, I would love to install Eric Dickerson and Craig James as co-commissioners in this conference. They haven't called me back yet, and maybe it would be a no, but I sure would love, I would love to basically recall as much of the old Southwest Conference as I can. I'm bringing back another conference. This is going to be fun, too. By the way, if you're watching, yes, this is pure fantasy land, but we do college football all year. So this is the kind of stuff we do in February. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's free. You don't sign up for anything. Nothing happens to you. It just helps us keep the show free. So, boom, that little red button. Some of you may think you're subscribed, and our numbers say 52% of you are not. So make sure you subscribe, please. The Big 8 is back, not the Big 12. No, none of that. The only reason that the Big 8 ever became the Big 12 is because they murdered the Southwest Conference. And so what I'm doing is I'm just fixing history. I am unmurdering the Southwest Conference. We're resurrecting it. It is the Lazarus of conferences. It's back to life. And now the Big 8 is, you're gonna have your mind blown by this. It's a conference called the Big 8. It's going to have 8 teams in it. Colorado, Iowa State, both the Kansas schools. Nebraska's back there, Missouri's back there, Oklahoma State, Utah. I am resurrecting some rivalries in the process. We're fixing a great injustice that was done, I think, back in the early 90s. And I'm bringing back the old logos as well. Southwest Conference, yes, the W closely resembles what maybe the female reproductive system would look like in a textbook. And I get that, and I know we'll hear some complaints about it, but we got to stick with history. We're not going the route of the Super Bowl where the logos become corporatized as opposed to back in the day when they used to look really good and artsy. We're keeping the Southwest Conference logo. We're keeping the Big 8 logo. Now, the ACC is where it's going to get a little controversial. So I'm throwing Maryland back in the ACC. Some of the other teams that are usually over there are over there. However, because of what I'm going to do in just a second with the Big East, there are a number of teams in the ACC that are notably absent. Number one, Syracuse sitting there. Well, that's because they don't belong in the ACC. They're going back to where they belong. So is Boston College. So is Louisville. So is Virginia Tech. And more on that in just a second. So there you go, 10 teams in the ACC. Everyone's going to play everyone. Guess what else is back? Pac-12 Pate is here to tell you that the Pac-12 is not coming back because the Pac-10 is coming back with the classic sunshine logo and all. The Pac-10 was always the easiest conference to memorize. You had the 2 Washingtons, you had the 2 Oregons, you had the 2 LA schools, you had the 2 Arizonas, and then you had the 2 Bay Area schools. And that's the 10. Just so simple. It's no wonder that adults screwed it up because it was too perfect. Nothing perfect lasts forever except in our memory. Or if I'm elected commissioner, in which case some of this perfection can come back. I'm bringing back the logo. I'm bringing back the Pac-10, yes. And then I've got to bring back the Big East because as you'll notice, if you've been paying attention, I haven't mentioned Virginia Tech. Well, that's because they're going to be in the Big East because they were in the Big East. I'm throwing West Virginia in the Big East because I don't like that their closest home game is like 1,000 miles away right now. They've never felt like the Big 12. Plus, the Big 12 has become the Big 8 in this world. So I'm throwing West Virginia in there. UConn, in a former life, I made UConn an independent. And our buddy Jack Mack protested, and I give him one protest a year, and he burned his protest on my hypothetical resurrection of the Big East and including UConn. So there it is. It's February, and he's burned it, and he's got UConn in the Big East. Congratulations. So is Louisville, so is Pitt and Cincy and Boston College and UCF. That was the one. Look, deal with it. There are bigger things to worry about than UCF, not historically having been in the Big East, but I put them there. That's because they're currently a Power 5 caliber team, and I wanted to slot them somewhere, and they didn't really fit anywhere else. Now, here is what some will call a problem, but I don't think it's a problem. Notre Dame's going to maintain their independence, which that's just normal. That's been normal for most of our lifetimes. Brigham Young's going back to being independent. It's just a numbers thing, and you guys have been independent before. Northwestern's going to be independent. I didn't have room for them, and they're one of the least relevant football programs in that conference, but they are one of the charter members, and I know that. I know my history. I know, but I'm going on product on field today. And look, if you guys want to have a knife fight with some other lower tier team in the Big Ten, you can do that. Or you can just win your way back in, because there will be a promotion and relegation system here. I don't have time to spell it out, but there will be promotion and relegation baked into this. Vanderbilt. Tough luck, especially because of this past year, but I got to throw you guys in the independent pile too. You can play your way back in. You can play your way back in. But I had to make some tough decisions. I shaved the SEC down to 10. It's 14 or 16 right now. You didn't make the cut. I'm sorry you didn't make the cut. Like I said, there will be promotion. There will be relegation. Not everyone who has been given spots in these conferences is going to end up earning them. I know that, and you know that. So if Clark and the boys over there just keep winning, you will have a seat at the table. So this is where I want to go, because I was told I can do whatever I want. This is where I want to go with college football. This is where I want to go with conferences. I cannot wait to listen to everyone agree with me in the comment section. Thank you very much in advance. Let's move on. I'm seeing a lot of questions about teams like Tulane, USF in the comment section. My thinking on that was they're not currently in what you would call a Power 5 conference. So I didn't elevate any of them. I elevated Rice, which is kind of inexplicable, but I did that because they previously were in the Southwest Conference. That's it. Trust me, that's all. Have you ever seen how big Rice's stadium is, by the way? There's some good YouTube videos on just how randomly huge Rice's stadium was. JFK delivered the "we're going to the moon" speech there in the 60s. They fit like 70,000 people in that place. And like 70 people show up for Rice games. Some very unnecessary shots at Rice tonight. But, you know, we've had a long and storied history with food. Number one rule on the show is love Meemaw. Number two is don't lose to food. Rice's stadium, so much bigger than some of these other places that pack their stadiums every week. Anyway, yeah, so Tulane, they could promote themselves as someone else relegates. South Florida could be the same way. So I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it's close enough to perfect for me.